my channel. I've wanted to do this for a while and it's never felt like the right time. And I realized that those were just excuses. And if I don't just do it, I'm never gonna do it. So here I am, ready to talk spooky shit, books, movies, podcasts, whatever. And I'm sitting in front of my spooky bookshelves, and this is my skeleton who has no name. So I don't know, what should I name him? So I thought for my first video, I would talk about some spooky shit I watched recently, what I'm watching lately, what I'm reading lately. So recently I delved into Cronenberg for the first time. So both David and his son, Brandon, I believe is his name, and they're both pretty fucked up. Like, I wonder what their family dinners are like. It's probably dark. I feel like a lot of shit has gone on in that family. So first, I started off with The Dead Zone, which stars Christopher Walken as Johnny Smith, a man who, he's a teacher and he gets into a car accident and he goes into a coma for like 5 years. And when he wakes up, he has psychic abilities, you know, as one does when they wake up from a coma. So he uses those psychic abilities for good, like telling his nurse creepily that her daughter is trapped in a house that's on fire, and solving a serial killer case that's local to them. And everybody just kind of accepts his gifts. No one questions it. No one thinks it's really crazy or outrageous. They start, hiring him to tutor their kids. The serial killer scene, when, spoiler, but this movie is pretty old. So if you haven't seen it by now, I'm sorry. Just leave, but then come back. Maybe I'll put timestamps down below if I figure out how to do that. So there's a scene where the serial killer knows he's been caught, and he lives with his mom, who she knows what's up with her son. She knows he's a piece of shit. She's probably the reason he's like that. So the serial killer, he decides he doesn't want to deal with the consequences, as they often do, because they're pieces of shit and they're cowards. So this serial killer goes up into his bathroom and he decides he's going to commit suicide. But he does so in a fashion that is pretty gnarly, pretty brutal. He uses a pair of scissors that, I don't know how sharp these scissors are, but he just, puts the scissors up on the tub and he puts his hands behind his head and he just thrusts himself onto the scissors to end it all. And that's a pretty brutal way to go. So that scene was pretty intense. And then there's also this backstory between Christopher Walken's character and the woman he loved before the accident. She's now married and has a kid. There's also an election going on where the guy who's running is kind of psychotic, and Johnny sees into the future when he touches his hand, so he knows what's coming. If this guy wins the election, he'll move on to become president and he'll kill like millions of people. So then the story turns on, well, what do you do with that information? Do you kill the person now when you know what they're going to become, or do you just let it happen? So I thought that was really interesting and it was fun. Christopher Walken is really good as a leading actor, and it's sad we don't get to see him in that type of role often, but he does deliver one of the best lines ever when he's arguing with a kid's father, a kid who he's tutoring. He's arguing with the father. They're gonna go on an ice skating rink, and Christopher Walken, he's trying to convince him not to take his son on the ice skating rink because, he knows the ice is gonna break. And the dad is like, what do you know? And Christopher Walken gets pretty pissed and he's like, the ice is gonna break. And it's pretty meme worthy, and that's my rendition of it, so you're welcome. moving straight along into Cronenberg, and also my neighbors are probably listening to me right now and thinking I'm crazy, which they probably already do. I talk to my dog often. So the next Cronenberg movie I watched was Rabid, which Rabid follows a young woman who gets into a car accident outside of a plastic surgeon's office. It just so happens to be outside this plastic surgeon's office. They rescue her and for some reason keep her to recover, and she's burned pretty badly over her entire body, and so they do skin grafts on her, and it's like some experimental shit that I wasn't really following very well because I was like, what? And whatever they did fucked with her body, and she grows this, like, I guess phallic thing slash vagina hole out of her armpit, and it feeds on the blood of people. So she's just injuring and infecting men, women, and then she spreads this plague, and it's pretty gross, and I wasn't super into it. But I followed that up with, I cleansed my palate with watching The Fly for the first time. And The Fly is a movie I stayed away from for a while because I was afraid it was going to be super disgusting and I couldn't handle it, because I'm not a huge fan of body horror, and Cronenberg is body horror. And The Fly, it's all about a man who somehow gets his DNA meshed with the fly's DNA because of his experiments that he's doing, and then he slowly turns into this like monster, and he's just disgusting, and there's pus, and his fingernails come off, his teeth fall out, he's just falling apart, and it's gross, it's disgusting, but it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. It was actually more sad than anything, because you're watching this couple go through this. He's got a disease that he can't fix, and his girlfriend, played by Gina Davis, she can't help him. She can't do anything to help him. She doesn't know how to help him. She just has to watch as he slowly loses control of his body, which it's sad. That happens in a lot of relationships with sickness, and it was very sad to watch. So it was more heartbreaking and touching to me than gross, but there are definitely gross moments. So I wouldn't watch this if you're pretty squeamy. And then after that, I decided to watch his son, I believe his name is Brandon Cronenberg, his film Possessor, which follows this woman. She's an operative who she goes into the minds of other people to carry out hits on people. If somebody ordered a hit on this guy who runs this corporation, like they want him dead, she has this technology that enables her to go into the body of someone who's close to that person and act out the crime for them. And then after she does the deed, she makes that person whose body she's in, she makes them kill themselves. But for this particular case, the person whose body she's in, he begins to fight back, and he tries to take control back. So she loses control, and she can't really complete the task. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, she's kind of struggling internally with her home life. So it's really interesting, and the actress is really good. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's the actress who starred in Mandy, and she's a brilliant actress. She also recently starred in a movie called Nancy, which is about a woman who's pretty sad. She's got a sad, lonely life where, she will pretend to be other people online, and she's like a compulsive liar. And then her mother dies, and her mother is who she was taking care of most of her life and living with. And her mother is just kind of a mean-spirited person and doesn't really support her. So after she dies, this woman is watching the news, and she sees these parents who are talking about how their young daughter was kidnapped 30 years ago, and they put a photo up on the screen of the girl along with an age progression, and she thinks that it looks like her. And so she gets involved with his family. She's like, I think I'm your daughter. And it just explores that whole wanting to belong somewhere, wanting to find out your purpose or why you're the way you are, and loneliness. And it's really sad and compelling, and I highly recommend it. It's called Nancy, and I believe that is on Prime. Most of these are available on Prime. Those are pretty much it for the movies I've watched recently. And I've also done a lot of reading. I recently read a book called Tender is the Flesh. It's kind of a dystopian horror novel that's set in a world where animal meat is poisonous. We can no longer eat animal meat. Cannibalism becomes legalized. Poor people are the ones who are often taken as the subjects for cannibalization, and then there's people who are raised like cattle to be eaten later in life, and it's fucked up. It's a really interesting commentary on how wealthy people live and how the poor are kind of pushed down and they get the shit end of the stick. Also, it's a huge commentary on the meat industry and how we treat cattle. And in this book, humans are treated like cattle, and it's disturbing and hard to read. And then it makes you think, holy shit, this is how they treat animals? Why are we okay with this? So it's a really interesting book, and it's disturbing. It's fucked up. It has a lot of blood, a lot of blood. And it's got a lot of stuff that is not easy to read, so I would check trigger warnings beforehand. That's pretty much what I've been doing lately while trying not to lose my mind. So I just thought I'd give this a try. If it goes well, it goes well. If you like it, comment down below. Name my skeleton guy. Let me know what you've been watching, what you've been reading. If you're interested in following along, this is out of my comfort zone, but it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. So if you're interested in following me along this journey where I'll hopefully get better at this and look a little better, then subscribe, follow along. And I'll leave all my social links below so you can follow me and chat with me and we can become spooky besties. So thank you. Bye.